All right. So today, it's a little bit of a different stream, um, only because I've been wanting to write some articles. So I figured doing it while I was streaming might be useful for folks. All right. There we go. So the first article that I was going to work on is basically the HTMX WebSocket stuff. So what I want to do is sort of clean up uh, my little Spike demo experiment so that it's a bit nicer for the article. One of the things I like to do when I'm not sure I necessarily call this a tutorial, but one of the things that I do when I'm writing these kinds of things is I want the project to be just enough. One of the things that I find frustrating when I'm reading uh, sort of how-to articles or tutorials is that they cram a whole bunch of things in that are might be nice, might be useful, but aren't sort of directly addressing what the topic is. Um, so what I'm going to do first is actually basically do a commit on this, and then I'll go and clean things up. Let's see. Yeah, that all looks good. Uh, let's ignore that. And actually unsplit. Okay, great. Hey, Jonas. Is it late for you? What time zone are you in? Why does it feel like you're on my later streams? Hey, Suiji. So let's see. So what do we need? I think what I want to do is so right now this little demo project has two has two endpoints. One for sort of an echo, which is maybe useful as like a chat. The other one is the timer stuff that I've been working on. Um, so I think what I want to do is oh, you're in CET. Okay, not that late, but yes, it is late. Uh, so let's see. I can get rid of that. Wait, help MD has a usage? What possible usage could it have? That's interesting. So it's ignored and it considers that a usage. That's interesting. Fine, I'll go fix that. And honestly, I can delete these other ones. Okay. Now let's delete it. Okay, so let's create a I guess let me plan out the article. So let's go to my website. Um, and this is going to be, you can tell I haven't written in a while. So let's go create a new directory. Oh, that's not going to be in the right place. So 2024 to probably won't get out until next week, so I'll put it as 19. And we'll create a new markdown file. Actually, I'm going to clone one of these. Where is it? Yeah, let's grab. Actually, let's grab. Let's grab this one. I don't like that it's collapsing all my front matters. That's new. All right. Two, 15. Okay. So let's see. What did I learn from this project? Um, let's see. Let me do this. Why it's there. I think I want to start with I don't know, do I want to start with the HTMX stuff or so what was my goal? Yeah, that's pretty much what I learned. um, um, so let's see. So chat. So I think the first thing that was important was Boy, IntelliJ does not like understand how markdown indentation of lists seems to work. I don't understand that. Um, Maybe because I'm doing it wrong? I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's what I want. So the first thing that actually was important to learn was sort of how the out of band swapping works. Um, um, and then um, so let's see. Timer. Here's, so we had the WebSocket extension. So pretty much it was these options, and this div ID. Let's go back here. I think actually what I want to start with is change of mindset when using HTMX. Um, Instead of JSON or other data format that. Yeah, I don't know if so that's something I want to play with is like what exactly do I need? Because I got it working, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily the most correct. So I want to figure out what exactly do I need? Because what I get back, oops, let me close some of these. I don't need that. Uh, I don't need that for now. And I don't need that either. Okay. So since I'm doing an inner HTML, my understanding is this then applies to this div, uh, and then this gets replaced. So this doesn't have um, the out of band swap, but I do want to play around a little more to see exactly what attributes I need there. Let me go. So swapping targets. So that's the HTMX target, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm not targeting another one. I'm replacing the current one. I wonder what the target would do. Um, oh, inner HTML is the default. Okay. And so it puts the content inside the target element. So it looks like that is the default. I don't actually need uh, the swap. What I also wonder, and I remember seeing this before, is would a morph swap be anything useful for my timer? I don't think so, because there's no focus. Although it might do a much better job because really the only thing I'm changing is the conic gradient and this. Um, this remains the same. So I wonder, so that's something I'll have to look at. Let's look at out of band swaps. So if you want to swap content from a response directly into the DOM by using the ID attribute, you can use the HX swap OOB attribute in the response HTML. Um, so I've been using this wrong and it just happened to work because I had the div IDs. Ah, okay. So it can either be true or any HX swap value. If the value is true, the element will be swapped in line. Yeah, I have to say this documentation really confused me and still confuses me a bit. Yeah, Suiji, I mean, definitely, the it can basically you can swap anything out of the DOM as long as it can find it. Um, but I find this to be really confusing. Hey, Astrid. Yeah, so basically, if a selector is given, which I'm not, all elements matched by that selector will be swapped. If not, the element with an ID matching the new content will be swapped. So, all right. Well, I figured I'd have to do this. So let's go write some other stuff. Let's go here. Let's create a div. This div is the call it oob swapping. And what we'll have in here is basically just another div with an ID of replace me. In here will be H1. Grab that. Call that replace H1 because I want to play around with that. So now let's put in rect button that will do an HX get from replace div. Let's call this replace div. I don't care about triggering. So by default, it'll just replace the inner part. Let's start there, but eventually I want all this to happen as a request through the WebSocket. Can I do that? Sockets, socket extension, WS send. What if you put an WS send directly on a button? It doesn't say. So let's. What do I want to do here? Yeah, absolutely, sweetie. And I mentioned that like a bunch of times when I was first going through. It's like I'd like to see a before and after. In fact, what I'd love to see is like a live, like self demonstrating page. Um, but let's do an out of band swap on this. Let's do HX Swap out of band. Um, so by default, uh, I mean, I think both would be useful. Here's what was before, and here's after what happens. So like this, when you click it, I'd like to see what happens. So let's do that. So create a regular controller that just will give us some HTML. Yeah, they have some examples, but why not host it live? We want at, so here we want at, well, technically, I just want to return strings of HTML. So let's do this as a REST controller. And so here we'll do a get mapping, but not hello. What do we want this to be? We'll do this as the replace h1. Oh, come on, you're not going to do text block? There we go, text block. Love to be able to make that the default, folks. How do I do that? So this is replace h1. That returns the HTML. All right, so let's, is that enough? Let's, do I need to say this? What does an HTMX get do? So this would be an out of band swap. So if I just say true, what happens? Hey, Magic79. Front end, it's sort of playing around. I'm writing an article on what I've learned, and I realized there's areas where I don't know what I learned, so I need to figure that out. So this is replace h1. And then we want a button that's basically the same. This is replace h1. This is replace div. What does that look like? Oh, those don't look like buttons. I forgot I'm using Tailwind, so basically it resets everything. So let's add some classes here. I should probably just put this up in the CSS part, but I'll just put it here. Yeah. There definitely needs to be some margin. Let's put We've got yeah, I mean, I actually wonder if somebody's done that. Like, seems like an obvious thing to do. So let's go into our controller. Let's go. So that's the H1. This is our div, and this is replace div one. So let's grab a div. So replace div. Number. Do the same thing here. All right, let's run this baby. Let's run it in debug mode so that I can recompile this stuff. So I think examples are useful. But this is already sort of too high level. What I want is like, what does this do? Right? Okay, great. It tells HTMX this. What is the result? For this example, click the button, what happens? That's what I want. These examples are useful, and I'll look at them. But these are already sort of building on concepts that without sort of a proper grounding. Yeah, so it's interesting. Like for anything more complex than like a couple of divs, like I don't know, let's call it a dozen lines of HTML. I'd probably go, or if I need to do a lot of data transformation, or if I'm going to reuse stuff, then I'd probably go with the time wave templates. And I know there's a project of view templates that makes more programmatic templates, and that also has some HTMX support. But I fully believe that you have to start at the most concrete in order to understand what's going on. All right, so that's running. Let's go hit it. Oh, I should probably turn that off. So if we replace the H1, so what that did was it replaced the contents of the button. In fact, we should probably also look at the page source while we're at it. So what that did was we clicked the button, and it basically replaced the inner HTML of the button with the H1. Uh, so true basically meant to change the internals. For it's think is it Tom Schooler's article? Spring HTMX view time leaf. Yeah, it is. It is Thomas's project, Spring View component. And this looks really interesting, and at some point I want to try it out. But I need to understand what's going on underneath. So let's go back here. So let's so then this is probably going to do the same thing. So true does mean let's close that. Where is it? Out of bound swaps. Oh, so this would have to be in the response. So it's not so I need to put it in the response to say out of band swap true. See, again, here's where it's like before, response from server, after. That's what I want to see. So we need to put, so if we take this out and we go to our controller and we add it here, where was it? See, what's confusing is this looks like the before that's in your page, but rereading this now, this is what the WebSocket's returning. And it may be that's what the text says, but it's really like not like it says receiving message from WebSocket. But these are the messages that are being received. It doesn't tell us, it doesn't connect things from it for us. And that's really was not clear to me. So let's try this again. Let's restart. And I want to just compile. No, it restarted anyway. I should probably turn off the timer. Let's refresh this page anyway. All right, so which one did we modify? So replace H1. Nope, not that one. Oh, did I type it wrong? That's HX. I keep doing that. Is it autocomplete here? No, because it's not an HTML file. If I do inject, where the heck is it? Inject language or reference, HTML, temporarily injected. So now I should have, yeah, okay, I should do that. So let's do the same thing here. So eventually we'll do an HX swap here. All right, let's try it again. Fresh this up. So we modified the H1. So replace H1. Okay. So what it did was it did target and replace out of band. To me, I find even the name out of band confusing because it's not out of band. It's all in band. It is out of the current scope. It's really out of scope. I want to replace something that's not in the scope that we targeted. Unfortunately, what it seemed to have done is also replaced the button content with nothing, because the HX get took whatever was left over, I guess. Because what I want, so I guess this is where you would do a target, and then you probably wouldn't need the out of band swap. So this is replace H1, no target. And this is HX target. That's wrong. This is wrong. It's not specifies the event that triggers a request. That's trigger. I think that plugin is wrong. So let's go back here. Right, because this is the target. I could set target equal none. I mean, the question is do I, so the out of band swap is for letting the server control where the replacement happens. If the client HTML already knows where the HTML is going, then I could just say that. So let's do target. That's the ID. I want this one. I want to get complicated. Sure, let's get complicated. Is it HX? So HX target none? It's not so it's not IntelliJ that's offering the HTMX completions. It's a plugin, and I think the plugin has a couple of boo-boos. So what do I want? Target, not triggers, targets. What if I don't what if I think it's swapping none. This is where you almost need, like, a table. Oh, no worries, 404. It's basically if you the only HTMX plugin that I am aware of. So if you go to plugins, look for HTMX. I think there's only one. This one. I will need to file a bug because that description must have been a copy and paste. Um, let's see. The bug is it says HX target specifies the event that triggers the request. That's a copy and paste from HX trigger. HX target specifies the destination for the content that gets returned. And there may be other similar problems. I notice sometimes it doesn't have any docs, like for swap and swap OOB. Fine. It's like a tiny little plugin. With no target nor checks. These button names are getting really long. Um, like grid. Um, come on. So let's fix up our controller. Um, OOB. And this is a request param. Request param, right? I still don't know why they call this request param. It's a query param. That's how it's called in the specs. Oh, what? Is it? Is this not? What is going on? Attribute value must be constant. Attribute value is constant. I have no idea what this default is. Does anybody know what this default is? Is this actually in the docs? Or is that in IntelliJ's mess up? Nope, nope, that's the default. What is that? A new line, some tabs, a new line, some tabs, a new line, and then some other character. That's so weird. But this must be a string. That's why I'm getting confused. So it's not the default after it's converted to a Boolean. It's false. Every time I do this, I think I run through the same problem. What I didn't notice was that that it's a type of string. Okay. So what we want is this. So if it's true, we'll return this. There we go. Otherwise, we'll return an empty string. What? Why not? Why is %s not allowed here? What am I missing? I can have %s here. This is returning a string. Why is this complaining? Oh, because it thinks it's an HTML attribute. Uh, that's what happens when you inject the language. Now it's like, what the heck is this %s doing here? Yes, it is the HTML parser recruits. Hey there, Mihai Simeon. Okay, so we don't care about that. Now I feel like this is getting complicated enough, so let's split this and move right. All right. And let me turn off the timer. You know what? Let me just move this to another thing. Style. Delete all of. Okay. All right, let's run this again. All right. So let's go to, we want targeting. So replace the H1, that's this thing. No target, nor HX swap with an out of band response. Right, so the out of band response told it to swap whatever ID it came in with. But since the target was not set, it replaced the contents of the button with nothing. Here, we're going to say swap none with, so basically the same thing, but with swap of none, and that retains the contents. This one, what does this one do? This one says we'll also replace the H1, this time using the target without the out of band response. and that's what it does. So because I specify the HX target, um, it doesn't need the out of band response because where I want to go is the target that I've specified here on the client. Uh, and I don't need to say swap none because it has a target for it to go to. Okay. Now I think I have a better understanding of what's going on. So I think what confused me about this part is the word sent here is confusing because the way the documentation has been talking, it's been talking from the point of view of the client, right? The browser. So when I think of send, I think it's from the client browser to the server. This is and it says sent by server, and you'd think, oh well, of course, it means the stuff that's sent by the server. But I kept reading it as just the sent part, and I didn't kind of really notice this the by server. Um, I think another thing that would be really useful is if the documentation used a different color or some other indication to say that this is the response from the server, and this is what's in the original HTML page. Um, or just use them side by side and have a sequence diagram kind of thing, which is how I would do it. Mihai, what do I think about the next period? I've been programming Spring Boot for 4 years. The AI that comes from behind really scares me. I don't know about you. Maybe you've had much better experience with AI than I have. I find it to be helpful about 20% of the time, and only in sort of very specific cases where I already know what it wants. Um, I continually try to have it generate non-trivial pieces of code, and it just falls completely flat. Um, I think there might be some very so I don't see it as anything other than occasionally making things slightly easier for developers. I'm not worried about 10 years. I don't. I I can't worry about 10 years. 10 years is forever. I don't try to predict 10 years. I don't even try to predict 5 years. Um, my main concern with you know with basically large language models and things like that is just the incredible amount of energy that they waste. Yeah, so I agree that because WebSocket is bidirectional, both are sending. Um, but the context here uh, is as a response to something. Um, so the reason so one thing, and I know that this was going to happen. When writing docs, this is a common thing I see of let me stuff 3 completely different examples into one little area. And I understand why it's done is because it's a lot of work to do more. Um, which is why I'm writing this article, is because am I supposed to be like, we don't read carefully. That is a fact of what we do, right? Our brains, we try to short circuit things, we scan things, and my goal when I'm writing documentation as well as when I'm writing code is I want to make it scannable. and this is not scannable. This requires me to read this very carefully to understand what this means, and that means that's not good. Because what we're looking for when we're the consumers of this is give me a concrete example that does one thing so I can understand how to use it. Um, there is really no good reason other than just I don't have more time to put these 3 things into one code block. Because you scan this and it looks like it's a single unitary unified thing. It's not. It is 3 different things that have 3 completely different results. All right. So that's enough of that. Okay. So, um, all right. So what do we want to swap? So, I kind of wanted to focus on the WebSocket stuff, but I kind of feel like you got to understand uh, the different what happens to the result that you get. So I think before we get to the basics, it's the basics of HTMX, HX get, HX target, and HX swap OOB. Yeah, I agree, Astrid, that writing from an expert point of view um, makes it harder. But there are what I think are fundamental rules of writing technical documentation of you don't put complex examples until later. You start out with the simplest possible example. What do you start with? What do you do and what does it end up with? And if you apply that to anything, you will be able to get better docs, even if you don't necessarily um, even if you're not able to sort of break down your sort of the cursive knowledge. And this is why, smaller methods with names that come from the domain. Um, and I think there's also the mentality of and this goes to many more smaller steps, right? I mean, small steps, which means you have to break things down. This thing would be broken down into many more, much smaller steps because it would be broken down actually into steps, right? So, there's and what's interesting is there's also the scrolling problem, right? I'm constantly having to scroll up. Wait, what was this? And wait, what's this? Um, and so that's also kind of a problem. It's hard to write, so it should be hard to read. Dang it. You should suffer as much as I did. That's a very wonderful empathetic attitude. I know, I know. So like even this example is already too complex because there are 2 pieces to this that it's demonstrating. Um, Notifications, that's a nice to have, right? That's extra, right? If we're talking about chat, we want basically this, but without the notifications, because then you can show, and basically I'm going to be writing exactly that. Then you can show um, that you get this. But then they throw in the morphdom. It's like, wait, what? Do I need that? Is that absolutely necessary? And again, this is this I see this time and time again, is throwing in little things. And it's so easy. And I do this, I know when I give conference talks or meetup talks or whatever, is it's so easy and enjoyable to go down tangents. Um, but like in this example, why is this morphed here? Is that required? Right? So somebody coming new to this, I'm like, "Do I need this? Is this required? Do I have to do that?" Because you know what happens is people copy and paste what they see. That's not a bad thing. That's how we learn. But if you put extraneous stuff in, right? So in the book club, we're talking about cognitive load, and we'll be talking explicitly about intrinsic versus extraneous kinds of materials for learning. This is extraneous. This is not, because we need the before end, but this seems extraneous. Or maybe it's not extraneous. I don't know, but it's not explained, and so I have no idea. Oh, I must have missed that specific GPOT post. I'll have to go find it. All right. So I think what we want to do then is I can close that and that and that. Oh, I can just close all the others. I don't need this. If you, I don't think, yeah. Try saying his name 3 times. We'll G-pop here. Um, we'll demo this just with an HX get. Oh, that's probably why I didn't see it, because I've been sort of skimming over his tree node, his curry tree stuff, because I've been following it from another location as well. So we've got the change of mindset, and so basically we will have uh, I'm very frustrated by IntelliJ's handling of markdown documents. It especially for like indented numbered things it's just wrong. I wonder sometimes why I um, so the HX get all right, so let's have that example. I don't need that. Um, so let's create another endpoint. See, this is why AI will never replace us. It's like new endpoint, new endpoint. This is a new endpoint. I do want a new endpoint, and I do want a get mapping endpoint. Um, so that's just fancy autocomplete. So what do I want to return? Actually, I don't need the new one. I'll just have a replace div. This doesn't even replace the entire div. Yeah, yeah. Yes, it's listening to me, it's tapping in on the microphone. That was pretty interesting that that's the name it chose of new endpoint, but it's creating a new endpoint, so what else would it come up with? I can have it, uh so this is interesting that, what it generated, uh, but I don't understand what it does. I don't understand why it's trying to replace all the code that already have with this new code. I didn't say replace my existing code, right? What I end up with is basically I I've done this a couple of times where I've had it generate stuff and I'm like, I don't understand why you're generating and then throwing away what I already have. That's not at all what I'd want. So I my subscription for the AI, for the JetBrains AI is coming up in a week, and I'm on the fence about whether to renew it. Okay, so this is replace div. Um, I'm gonna put a hyphen in it to make it easier to read. So so inside here, that's not quite what I want. Uh, Although it's interesting that it would suggest that. So what I want is I want this ID to be equal to place div. I forget what the color that looks like. Oh, it would help if I had some text in it. All right. Yeah, I saw that Astra. It's like you hired the chatbot, you pay for what it does. I understand. So sometimes I ask it to autocomplete. I ask the AI to do the autocomplete, and it basically does nothing. Because what I was hoping it would do is generate the class for me, but it's not generating anything. And I don't know if it's just broken or what. I don't know. Yeah. Well, customer service is allowed to do whatever they want. So, um, what do we want here? Sure, let's grab that. That look like? Um, that needs to be inside the div. Okay, and let's grab a button. BD, have a good night. So this is, we want to replace div. All right, let's see if we do that. We expect this to, since there's no target here, we expect when this comes in, there's no target, so it's actually going to replace the contents of the button. We don't want that. But let's verify that's what happens. So we want to look at basically this div. Um, nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay. So so we've got our button, which has the hx get to this. The div comes back. In fact, let's actually look at network. So if we click on the button, it's going to do a get request. It's going to get some HTML, and it's going to take that HTML and stuff it into this button. Right. So we can look at the headers, and we can look at the response. This is the response. And so that's what that does. Okay. I don't know why it thinks I want that. What I want is a class, font bold, text large. Um, Hey there, Tukes. Inner classes are, I don't know about used frequently, but they definitely do have a lot of uses. I think it's important to understand the difference between static and non-static inner classes, and also understand the difference between an inner class and a class that happens to be in the same file as another class. All those are confusing, and sometimes still confuse me. Let's see. All right, so let's do that. Let's refresh. All right. That probably shouldn't have been an H1. I mean an H2. That was a mistake. Uh, this should just be a P. Let me run Tailwind so that gets regenerated. Do I have Tailwind running here? I don't. What am I using? Am I just using general? Oh, I'm just using. Oh, I have to generate the Tailwind here. Where is that? There it is. Yes, and anonymous interclasses are also really important, especially when you want to understand lambdas. Hey, Donnie Roos. Yeah, I've been long a fan of HTMX. I hadn't really used it though until recently. Um, I don't think I have a setup for Tailwind. No, I don't. All right, never mind then. Oops. There you go. Let's put some margin. All right, so if we click this button, that happens. So that's that. Let's actually copy this file. Get rid of this. Then we can get rid of this stuff. So let's see. So that's is the P2 not coming? Do I not have that entailment? Was this generated? All right, we'll have to fix the generator. Do this at home, folks. There we go. Hey, Deshaun, Java Grunt. How's it going? All right, so this is the one where it doesn't work the way we want it to. And so now what we want to do is create one that does work the way we want it to. So this is hxget with button wrong target. Um, Oh, refactoring your lab. Let's see. So this is the one that doesn't work. This, let's see. So I don't need this ID. I don't need this ID. Hmm. Um, I might have to put this. So I'm trying to balance like putting this in one page versus having these IDs be consistent. Let's see what happens. I suspect I know what's going to happen, but let's see what happens. So used to typing the backtick for monospace. Um, to the button that initiates. So we've got our class, we've got our HX get, and we've got our HX target. Um, okay, so we'll replace the target div contents. Um, so regardless of what we return, now that we have the HX target specifying this div should go away. Um, should see that. Okay, so let's try this again. Make this so big. So here, the button text got replaced. Here, because we have the target, it replaced in the target. So now what we want to do is demonstrate so we got where it replaces the wrong thing. We've got it where the client, the HTML directs the content where to go. So if we look at this after, I forget, how do I rearrange this? That's the doc side. Org. Okay. So where to go? Here it is. The reference of this in the first example is ambiguous. Format it that way. This one the same way. Thank you, Astrid. Okay, so now we want another example, which is because the response from the server contains HX swap OB. Right. But with a specific target. Has no HX target on it. And so we'll basically do another get mapping that'll look a lot like this. With OB swap, and that's target of OB, and the target of OB is that. And we want HX, HX swap OOB. And we want that to be is true sufficient? I don't know if true is sufficient. Um, so now, right. So here we got the content coming back and the button disappeared, or the button text disappears. So basically the inner HTML of the button is right. So if we look at this button and we click it, we see the button contents goes away. Still is there. We can still click on it. And we can see the time get updating here. But that's still probably not what we want. So this one works fine because we've specified a target. This one is out of band swap. And so what we want to do to fix that uh, what will happen if I have an ID that's already in use up here? I guess we'll find out. So here we're doing the hx get, but we're also doing hx target of none. Is that right? No, hx swap of none. Not target, swap. Let's see, Astrid, because it'll either be whatever is found by a typical document get element by ID, or it will look for the closest one. Both could happen. So let's see. Well, that's interesting. That was unexpected. So it did neither. uh, so it did both. So we both win, right? Because watch here, this one and this one. I click it here, and it replaced both. So do we both win or do we both lose? So that's probably not what I want for my demo. What is the grid calls? Both those? Okay, fair enough. Our test would have failed, right? That's for rows in a grid. Grid template columns. Gap. I probably want a bigger Y gap. I've currently got it set to a gap of 4, which is a 1 rem gap, but I'd like the gap Y to be bigger. So gap X4 and gap Y6. Yeah, I mean, technically, you're not supposed to have multiple IDs with the same multiple of the same IDs. In fact, IntelliJ is marking that. But it is nice to know that you could do that if you wanted. It's still not big enough. What is the biggest Y gap I can do? You're right. It's totally not a bug. It's a feature. It has Y12. Why am I not seeing it? Because I probably don't have the Tailwind thing running. Let's fix that. But I don't think I have this configured correctly. Ugh. Uh, um, I should just, for this stuff, I should just use the complete the complete set and not have to regenerate it. Yeah, so let's just add that. And let's just make sure that works. Is it still caching? No. Oh, because I didn't finish writing the gap Y. Duh. There we go. That's the gap I wanted. So this isn't a spike. This is actually going to be part of the article that I'm writing. So I wanted to have a nice, a decently nice layout, and I could use a bit more gap. All right. So we know we can't use the same ID. So let's go fix that. How do I want to do that? How do I want to do that? Do I want to have a separate endpoint that has a separate target, or do I want to make it a parameter? I feel like making it a parameter is more flexible, um, but it gets away a bit from the concreteness. So for this article, I want to make it as concrete as possible, and I feel like any uh, like this stuff with the parameter was temporary. I'm going to basically get rid of that. Um, in fact, let me copy this class. This is HTMX uh, targeting. Get targeting, and I'll delete this. And here, I'll get rid of this. So since this is an article, I kind of don't want to have any code here in the sense of any decision making. So is that more or less clear? Well, let's try it. Duplicate this. Oh, come on. You replace that part. Okay. How do I inject HTML How do I do that again? Uh, let's ask the AI assistant. Let's see. Really, it's only that way? Thanks. All right, so I guess I have to inject it each time, which is kind of a bummer. I do wonder how it's storing that information, though. Like, is that in a config somewhere that I could control more easily? Well, that's not what I'm here to solve, so, and I need to replace this over here. All right, so let's restart. Oh, hold on a second. Click this button for a second. Just getting my grocery list that I have to shop for in a bit. Okay. Nope, that's not the view I want. There we go. Okay. I mean, it's sort of as like it's not an unreasonable suggestion, but it always uh it does seem to like it's trying to be helpful, and I get that, but that's not what I want. All right, so this replaces it, but mucks up uh, the button. This one replaces it and keeps the button. So this is the one. Uh, so either this one or this one are what we want. So let's do this. Um, background green. Let's try 100. What does that look like? And let's put in some padding. All right, that looks good. And we'll add it to this one as well. And to this one, instead of green, we'll make it, let's try red 50. Doesn't feel red enough. How about 100? That's good. Got that. And put it up here. All right. So I am uh, done with these examples, which is like step 0 of what I actually wanted to write about, which is the WebSocket stuff. But um, got to start somewhere. All right. So this is done. Uh, celebrate redeem. I should. Yeah. I don't have any like fireworks or any fancy stuff. Should probably be nice to have that. Um, yeah. Step 0 is always something you need. All right. So we got the demo with the HX get. I think I want one more example of that. uh, this feels like a nice to have. I think I can just mention in the text that we can do that, and then maybe later on I'll add that. So I think this also achieves the change of mindset. So it's a fundamental basic example. Um, oh, that's a good idea, Astra. I should just have a Ted says yay. Remind me, I'll do that for next time. So this will cover the change of mindset, and well as understanding the difference between HX swap and HX target. And it's almost tempting um, to want these things to have slightly different names, right? So this HX target appears in what I'm going to call client HTML, whereas the HX swap out of bounds is only in the server generated HTML. It's a subtle distinction because obviously the server could return HTML that has the target in it, um, but it's sort of who's controlling what gets replaced. I wonder who overrides what. Presumably the out of band swaps would. In fact, if I remember correctly, it does override it. Uh, I don't know that I want to get into that level of nuance. I'll mention it, but I'm not gonna go deep into it. Yeah. So I'll add that to the article. Um, yeah, I'm trying not to overwhelm folks, because it's not basically, it's like, just don't do that. Or don't do that yet. So we kinda did this already. Um, so let's see. Uh, so now I can look at this and, let's go back to, we can close this now, and we can close that. Yeah, so now we can see where I was wrong, which was, putting the HX swap here. Um, so I think now we can and I gotta end this stream in, like, 5 minutes. So what we can now do is we can now have a much simpler version of what'll eventually be the timer that I created. So what we want is the most bare bones chat. Um, so this loads up the extension. This connects to an endpoint. Let's go to our endpoint. And so what happens here, um, so what do we want to happen? Whoops. We don't want notifications. What we want is just some chat messages. So this is I'm gonna call it chat messages. Yeah, make them feel safe and then overwhelm them. So can I on the client side manipulate the HTMX to intrude the server? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. I don't need that. Um, that's funny. I don't need the CSRF token here because I don't have security. Can you use it for attacking? I mean, I it's just doing JavaScript fetch stuff. So anything you could do with JavaScript, you can. I mean, I don't think it makes it any more powerful. I mean, you're still just doing get requests and post requests, which you can do in JavaScript. So it's no once you're running JavaScript, then you can do whatever you could. Then sort of make sure you've got security and CSRF and other kinds of stuff. Um, so this form will do a WS send of the contents. So let's do that. Let's call that chat. Let's rename this to the chat WebSocket handler. We'll delete the send notification for now. Oh, actually, we need the method. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to target chat messages. And we can inline that. And here is where we want the swap out of bands to be before end. So it won't replace what's there. It will basically add it to the inner HTML, but at the end. Since it's already in a div, we don't really need this. Yeah, I mean, HTMX is just making this stuff easier. It doesn't mean it's doing anything that you couldn't already do. And exactly, you want to make sure your stuff is, don't rely on your front end to be secure. All right, I should stop drinking coffee. All right, so let's go to this page, and then that'll be it for today. Whoops. I renamed the chat WebSocket handler, but I didn't update the config. It should be chat. Let's try that again. That's interesting. So let's take a look at what's going on here, because this is not interesting. So note that what ends up getting put into this div is, and okay, now that makes sense. So what we're returning is we're returning a div that is chat messages, which means that it's going to target this div, but it doesn't replace the div. because we said HX swap out of band before end. So instead, what it does is it takes the contents of this div and adds it to the inside of the div that already exists. Um, if we just said swap equals true, that would replace it. So that means we actually do want to um, put a p tag around this. Yes, good morning, Astrid. Yeah, so now what we see is the div has a growing set of p tags, and each one is being added at the end. So right before basically the div closes. And so now what we could do is uh, have another div. And I'm actually now running late. All right, let me do this one, and then I'll end for today. Um, what we'll do here. So what we've been doing is we've been grabbing the JSON that we get from the button click that sends this form is actually much more than just the contents of this input. It's actually, ironically enough, it's JSON that gets sent with a bunch of headers. So it'd be useful to actually see what that is. So let's do send notification, and here's where we actually will need to get a parameter for this. Not all that. I want just this part. And so now what we want is the message payload. Oh, what happened? Oh, that was weird. Okay. That's wrong. But thanks for playing. That's our payload. And what we want to do is we want to send a notification to the session. But what we want to send instead is the entire payload and target the actual payload's DOM element. Unchecked assignment. What would you suggest? No, whatever. Okay, so now if we run it, we'll see two things come back. We'll see the chat message, which is just the chat message, and then we'll see the entire, basically, copy of what the server received. So here is just the payload, and here is the actual entire payload. This message is actually wrong. And so we see that what we're getting is a bunch of JSON. We get whatever's in the form. we can sort of add to that. We can basically have an input hidden, and name equals username, and value equals jitterted. Why is there an extra double quote? Map class is a class. Yes. Because what I want is I just want name value pairs. Basically, I just want to map. I don't want to parse the JSON much more than that. I mean, I could just display the string, which is what I do here, but I want to actually pull this out. All right, this is it. And I'm out of here. What we see is name of input is this text field. We've got the hidden field, which is this. And then it also sends a bunch of headers. This was an HX request. The trigger was a form. There was no trigger name. The target is also the form, and the URL is this. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's because I'd have to use a type reference for this, and I was just lazy. All right, that's it. I got to do some grocery shopping in the rain. So didn't make anywhere near the progress that I wanted to make, but I think that is always what happens. Stuff just takes longer than you think. So next time, I think we've got the basics of the swapping, and we have for the level 1 of using WebSockets and what the payload looks like. And so there'll be the first one we did, which just had the chat messages. And then we'll add on, now we can actually target 2 things. And then once we do that, then we can move on to the more complex of this is actually really more of an echo server. Anybody else who connects won't see these messages. So now we'd have to say, okay, now we need to keep track of sessions and things like that. So, all right. Thanks, folks. Thanks, Astrid, for hanging out. Thanks, Deshaun Java Grunt for hanging out, and other folks who were just lurking in the background. Appreciate you. I will probably also stream tomorrow with just this stuff, or if my partner in crime, Mike Rizzi, is around, we'll do a pair stream. As always, if you want to stay up to date, best way to do that is on my Discord. I announce streams usually with at least some amount of notice on the Discord. I don't always announce them on social media, but this one I just announced on the Discord. So we also have a book club. So every Sunday, which is basically the next one is tomorrow, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, which is 6 to 8 p.m. UTC, we discuss a book we're currently working on. We're just starting. We just did chapter 1 last week, chapter 2 coming up, of The Programmer's Brain. It's never too late to join, and you don't have to come to every one. And the last thing I want to mention is Tuesday, I'm going to talk about my TDD game on the Agile Lunch and Learn. So join me for that. Go to bit.ly TDD-game-lunch to get the invite link. And I'll see you, if nothing else, I'll see you there on Tuesday. Otherwise, I will see you on the next stream. Have a great rest of whatever day you've got, and I will and stay dry or stay warm, whatever applies to you. Have a good one. Bye. Yay.